we have seen since like that. It's really an intensification of this assault. As a matter of fact, it probably surpasses other times. Israel has always greeted American officials, Secretary Clinton, with increased assault on Palestinians and so on. But we have seen really, a spike in killing dozens, hundreds of Palestinians since last Thursday. Well, they are now the killing of Sinwar, even with some people calling for resettlement in Gaza and so on. So, my question to you. Is Israel implementing the so-called generalist plan that aims to depopulate Gaza and resettle it by Israeli settlers?
What I can say, Saeed, is that first, the rhetoric that you're referring to about resettling Gaza, or however it was phrased, we certainly that's the kind of rhetoric that we unequivocally reject. We have been clear numerous times that what we are working towards and what we want to see is Palestinian-led governance in Gaza, and a Gaza that is unified with the West Bank under what we hope is a revitalized Palestinian Authority. The Secretary was clear about this in the immediate months after October 7th in a speech that he made in Tokyo that fall, where he laid out that there can be no long-term displacement of Palestinians from Gaza. We don't want to see any territorial reduction in Gaza, and we certainly don't want to see any reoccupation of Gaza after this crisis ends. What we want to work on and what we want to see are affirmative elements that will get us to a sustained peace, and that, in our view, needs to include the Palestinians' people's voices, their aspirations, and that needs to be at the center of post-crisis governance in Gaza. The United States would not and will not support anything less than that.
Okay. I also appreciate every time you call me. Thank you. I wanted to ask you about Palestinians have been accusing the Israeli military of using detainees as human shields in Gaza. I wonder if you're aware of these reports, and if you are doing anything about investigating this issue.
So we've spoken to this a little bit before, Saeed. These reports are incredibly disturbing, and if they are true, they are completely unacceptable. We're still gathering information, but as we have said before, civilians need to be protected, and Israel has a responsibility to investigate credible allegations of violations whenever they arise.
And how will you determine if it's true or not?
We will continue to engage with our partners in Israel on this side. Of course, as we've talked about before, the United States does not have boots on the ground in Gaza. We will continue to assess these through the limited means that we have, but the ultimate thing here is that we want to see Israel appropriately investigate credible allegations or violations whenever they arise. We have, of course, seen them do that in certain incidents, and we want to make sure that that is consistently applied to anywhere that these issues arise.
Do we have an update on the delivery of aid?
Sure, I'm happy to. I'm happy to offer some updated information on that. Look, I think first, let me just say, and Jenny asked this a little bit, that this is something that the Secretary stressed and reiterated with the Prime Minister earlier today, that we want to continue to see progress made. We are continuing to press Israel that there is a responsibility to maximize and streamline the existing crossings and open more crossings for more increased levels of aid into Gaza. 114 trucks crossed yesterday. That included trucks from Kerem Shalom and the Erez West crossing. Certainly, I don't say that to try and make the point that that is satisfactory or enough, but we want to continue to see a steady influx of trucks and humanitarian assistance into Gaza site, especially as the region heads into the winter months. We want to make sure that appropriate foodstuffs and winterization supplies are appropriately surged.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alex, go ahead.
Do you know how many aid trucks arrived in northern Gaza over the weekend up until today?
I don't have a specific breakdown for you on transit intra-Gaza. What I can say is, what I answered to Saeed's question is that there were, and I will pull up the number again just to be precise, it was on October 21st, 114 trucks that we saw enter Gaza, which again, not at all, don't make that, offer that statistic to say that that is satisfactory, but that is the updated metric that we have, and simultaneously we of course are stressing with partners in Israel that more needs to be done to enhance the flow of humanitarian aid.
I asked because a journalist yesterday on the ground in northern Gaza yesterday told me that an UNRWA facility in Gaza City had received 7 trucks containing flour and canned goods, but which have yet to be distributed, but received no water. I don't know what you do with flour without water, but they're having a hard time even distributing these because of the ongoing onslaught there.
I'm just going to stop you right there. We are not at all saying that the situation has improved or that the situation is satisfactory. Far from it. We have, in the immediate days following the letter that Secretary Blinken and Secretary Austin sent, we saw some important steps in the right direction as it relates to particular border crossings. Those were good positive signs. I can say that on October 21st, 114 trucks made its way into Gaza, but of course we are continuing to see challenges as it relates to ensuring that aid is getting to where it needs to go within Gaza. That's something that we are continuing to work closely on with partners in Israel, NGO partners, and international organizations, and that's something we'll continue to stress. All right, everyone, we're going to wrap there. Thanks.
I want to ask about the Israeli strike near a hospital in southern Beirut. Does the U.S. have comment on this strike that killed more than a dozen people and left dozens more injured?
So I've seen that reporting, Jenny. I don't have any specifics that I can offer as it relates to that operation. We, of course, will let the IDF and the Israelis speak to the kinds of operations that they are conducting. But look, we have been as clear as we have been that when it comes to operations that the IDF is undertaking to degrade Hezbollah, which we, of course, support, that every possible measure needs to be taken to minimize impact on civilians, to minimize civilian casualties, and that one step beyond that, every possible measure needs to be taken so that civilian infrastructure, whether it be hospitals, schools, anything in that category, that impact on that needs to be minimized as well. We have asked the Israelis for additional information as it relates to this particular strike, but I don't have anything to offer as it relates to that. I think let's also not lose sight on the fact that Hezbollah is a terrorist organization that does have deep-rooted infrastructure in various corners of Lebanese society, and part of that has included Hezbollah co-locating itself with civilian infrastructure. Again, as it relates to this particular hospital, I don't have any insight that I can offer from up here, but this is something we'll continue to engage on directly with the Israelis.
Will the U.S. conduct its own investigation into whether every possible measure was taken here to protect civilians?
Broadly speaking, Jenny, we have measures and levers and processes in place to ensure that international humanitarian law was abided by, that civilian harm was minimized in whatever way possible. I certainly wouldn't speak to that in these settings, and we would not necessarily open our own investigation at this point.
Has there been any investigations into whether Israeli measures in Lebanon or Gaza have taken every possible
I just
measure
wouldn't speak to ongoing or deliberative processes.
Whether any of those have wrapped up?
We have talked about the tools that the United States has at its disposal to do this work basically since the onset of October 7th. I know this group is quite familiar with them, whether they be CHURD, whether it be the Leahy process, whether it be the conventional arms transfer policy, and various other things. All of those are active, ongoing things that the United States continue to have at its disposal to assess circumstances around any country in which we have a security relationship with, and that, of course, is going to continue and will always be effective implementers of U.S. law.
I'll pass. Okay. Can I just ask quickly one more? Did the Secretary get any commitments from the Israeli government statement today that they would increase humanitarian aid to northern Gaza after the letter last week.
The secretary in his readout, which I know you all saw, was pretty clear in his readout that there are still many things and many progress markers that we need to see as it relates to the flow of humanitarian aid. I don't have any specific commitments to outline beyond what was in the readout.
I asked because the Israelis don't make any mention of it in their own readout. But that
Well, look, I'm not a spokesperson for them. I'm a spokesperson for the U.S. government, and it is something that the secretary has placed significant emphasis on, both in the letter from earlier in the month, the letter from April, but also the consistency at which the secretary has raised humanitarian aid. And the secretary made very clear that there are continued areas where we need to see market improvement.